So on to an Operators Without Borders update. So as you may know, Operators Without Borders has been doing some work in the Caribbean and has involved many Canadian and some American operators as well. I'm really glad that EOCP is part of this process as a founding partner. I'm currently treasurer of Operators Without Borders and one of the founding directors as well. So one of our speakers is joining us from Ontario. He is Jason Menk. He's a certified industrial mechanic millwright. He is also a Class 4 wastewater operator. He's been working in the Water Authority for 9 years and currently is operations and maintenance team lead, overseeing the operations of 6 wastewater treatment plants and pump stations. So Jason is going to be joining us from Ontario. And the other speaker, I think, probably needs very little introduction because I think she is very well known in the industry for the work she has done with her own company, but also Operators Without Borders. Valerie Jenkinson is one of the founders and is the chair, a very hardworking chair of Operators Without Borders, and has led teams on water utility recovery post-disaster. She's part of the WASH group and holds certificates in disaster coordination. And last year, she was named the Focal Point of the Year for Global Water Partners in the Caribbean, in recognition of a contribution to the water industry. Valerie is the CEO of World Water and Wastewater Solutions Limited and has worked with national and local governments, the EOCP, the Ministry of Health, and the Waste Management Association of BC, primarily undertaking stakeholder consultations and writing strategic and communication planning documents. Valerie has also presented on integrated water resource management around the world, including the UK, the USA, parts of Africa, Singapore, and the Philippines and Malaysia. She has taught for 25 years at the BC Institute of Technology in the School of Business, and has also taught at the University of British Columbia. So with that, I welcome Valerie, the chair of Operators Without Borders, and also a good friend. Thank you, Valerie.
Thanks, Yalna. Good morning, everybody, and it's a delight to be here. And I'd first like to thank the EOCP for this opportunity. And our board of directors. Kelpner, as she said, is the treasurer, a very hard-working treasurer, and we're delighted to have her on board. Madeleine Bouchler is our secretary, and Robert Haller, the executive director of the CWWA, is a director, as well as Carl Yates, who's recently retired as the general manager of Halifax Water and is now the CEO of the new First Nations water utility for the Maritimes. So all hardworking members of our board and all volunteers. I'd also like to thank all of our volunteers that give so generously of their time. You saw yesterday, if you were in the first session, Greg Salaki, who's going to be speaking next as your keynote speaker, Ian McIlwam and Ron Enns, who have all contributed greatly to what we're doing. So it's my delight to be here and tell you a little bit, because some of you have probably never heard of us before, and some of you may have heard one or two things from previous conferences. So we're a registered now Canadian charity. We did get our NGO certification a couple of years ago, but this year we were delighted to be registered as a Canadian charity. And how we started is we were formed in response to Hurricane Irma and Maria in the Caribbean in 2017. Through World Water and Wastewater, my company, I have been working in the Caribbean for the last 12 years. And when the hurricane came up, I knew most of the general managers, especially the general manager from Dominica, Bernard Etanoff. And I said to him at one of the conferences, what do you need? And he said, we need everything. He said, the country is destroyed. We need help, but we need some people to come and help us. So I talked to Robert Haller at CWWA, and Operators Without Borders started. And we've presently got over 60 certified operators signed up to volunteer. Now, because there is not, thank God, disasters happening all the time in the Caribbean, although this is a very active year for hurricanes, as you've probably been seeing, we expanded our mandate to include training and mentoring because we had so many great people and so much to give. We didn't want to waste their talents. So we started doing training and mentoring. And we've also done assessments in water utilities. And then the big thing, of course, is disaster relief. And what we're not is first responders. So there's many, many NGOs, UNICEF, who we work with, Water Mission, many NGOs who immediately go to a disaster area, set up reverse osmosis systems, toting, trucking to get water to communities. Our mandate is to go in when there's equipment and when there's an opportunity, go in and rebuild the existing structure with the water utilities. So we only deploy once there's been accommodation available, which is very, very often in short supply, and equipment. And we also work with a lot of the other Caribbean agencies who I've been working with for many years, the other CWWA, the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association, CAWASA, SEDEMA, the disaster management. So we work with all, in conjunction with all of those. And we go in there and try and rebuild. So this is one of the training sessions you might recognize from yesterday, Ron Enns. We went into Belize and we did safety training for them. We trained 120 of their personnel in confined space, trenching and excavating, and then we helped them afterwards. So Ron's been in constant contact with them on some of their issues that they've been having difficulties with. So here he is in their very nice facility in Belize, very modern, unlike many of the other utilities we work with down there. They're a great utility to work with. And we also did assessments when we were down there. So here's Ian, who was again on the call. I think that's actually Marcel down in Abaco. But we go in and we look at what they have in there and then make suggestions for improvement. So the two disasters we've worked with are in Dominica and Barbados so far. We sent an initial team of 3 operators, Glenn Ketchum from EPCOR in Edmonton, Marcel and Jason, who work with Aqua in Ontario. And they went down to Dominica and in less than 2 weeks put together their whole wastewater treatment plant, got it up and running. And it hadn't been running before the hurricane, so they were able to do a great job in getting it operational and then restoring water to 3 villages in remote parts of the island. And then in the Bahamas, so this is a picture of what it looked like right after the hurricane. The island was destroyed. There was not one building that was not affected by the hurricane. Everything was destroyed, and I'm going to let Jason talk much more about that. And then I'm just going to play this just so that you can see what type of situations as we're sitting at home with a cup of coffee in our hand and food in the fridge, and it's nice and warm, not maybe a bit smoky out there today, but this is what they were faced with. So as you can see, there was basically nothing left. This is the downtown area, Marsh Harbor. And all that we did was bring in bulldozers. And so the challenge was to start rebuilding from scratch and building a new society for them. And this is where we sent 5 teams down to the Bahamas to help. And Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm not an operator. I'm sort of the logistical person in the background. But Jason is one of our team leads. He worked in both Dominica and the Bahamas. And I just love this guy. So Jason, take it away.
Hi, all. I hope you're all doing well. I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight into what we did and who I am. As it was indicated before, I'm just an O&M team lead for an operating authority out of Ontario. And the reason I got involved is just simply because things that we all know as operators day to day, the little bit of knowledge or a lot of knowledge that we have can help so many people down there. Very simple things we do make a huge difference and impact on those that don't have anything at the time. So I'm just going to touch a little bit on Dominica first, what we did down there. The whole city, as Val had said, was without wastewater treatment plant for over 3 months, and there was a number of towns that had no water. So we came in and we were working with the authority there and had an electrical engineer come in, and we had to clean up all of the electrical equipment. So essentially just give it a quick wipe down, test it electrically, make sure that everything could be brought back online. And we then certified everything and had the electrical authority come in and hook up the utilities because all the power lines had been taken down and knocked out. There was 3 pump stations in the area that weren't running. We did that there, and the main plant right in Roseau. So we reconnected all the utilities, and then we brought the plant back online. And from there, we then went out to each of the pump stations and got them up and running. One of the main problems that we had was a sewer line that crossed over the river had been disconnected in the storm. The storm had wiped it out. So we, with the authorities' help, we had an excavator come in, took down the riverbeds, pumped down the water so we wouldn't have so much hydraulic pressure on the system. And then we're able to plug the lines and then pump across the bridge to get all the sewage into the plant then, just by use of a couple of 6-inch pumps that they had on site. We plugged all the lines and then got the pump stations back online, started pumping everything back then to the system, and started running the utility and running the system that they hadn't been without for, as we said, over 3 months since the hurricane had come through. And then after we got everything up and running, we helped train the staff. There's a lot of things that the staff didn't understand how to run prior to us even getting there. So just being there with them and showing them it's the same equipment that we run here on a day-to-day basis. Just being able to show them what to look at daily, greasing, just simple things like that, very much helped out. So we also, as Val said, brought water back into 3 little towns and villages that were up in the mountains by connecting water lines and getting them to the villages. And this was all accomplished in 2 weeks. So we hit the ground 3 months after the hurricane had happened, and 2 weeks later we had the whole wastewater utility back up and running and water to 3 additional villages and help move forward to get each additional village. As Val said, we work with the utility, so we have a lot of access to their equipment and different operators and contractors on site. They'll come in and help us. So there was only 3 of us that came, but we were able to do substantial amount of work there by the time we left. In Bahamas, it was a completely different scenario. What happened in Bahamas was half of the island was underneath water, and the other half was still functioning. So you could still go to a restaurant, you could still go to the grocery stores and get stuff. But what had happened was the wells had been infiltrated with the seawater. So all the fresh water that was being pumped through the system had very high salinity levels. So we came in to try and devise a bit of a plan of what we could do to help get the salinity levels back down within their pumping system. They had over 160 wells that fed the island with fresh water, and it was very shallow wells. So we went around and assessed every single well, assessed if they were up and running or if they needed parts, what they needed, did testing and set up daily testing on each of the wells so that we could then test and see if the salt levels were coming up in those wells. And if they were, we'd shut them off and maybe go to a different well. And therefore being able to bring down the total salinity level that we were supplying to the customers. So everybody was running their regular day-to-day activities, except you have salt water coming out of your taps. This is, it's hard to deal with. It's nice that you can, go home and be on your internet, but when you're having a shower, you're covered in salt, all your equipment in your house starts rusting. So it was a much different disaster that we had to take care of, but with the help of the utility, and as Val said, we sent in 5 different teams, we were able to make a huge impact there as well. It very simple things that we do daily help these people immensely, because they unfortunately don't have the ability or they don't have the equipment. So I would just bring with me a couple tools that I could carry in my backpack and just give me the ability to go around and test everything. And what it really means is we gave fresh water and the ability to people to flush toilets. And there was one time I talked to a businessman. He had a large business in Dominica, and he came up and thanked me thoroughly and shook my hand and said, "You don't understand. I spend all my days now walking down to the river, filling buckets so I can just bring them back to my house and flush my toilets." The work that we did there at both islands was substantial, and the people would just thank us up and down. It was really nice. And it was amazing to me how much difference one person could make. Our knowledge, what we do, as I said earlier, day to day, can change people's lives, gives them the ability to have a little bit of normalcy in times of disaster. Made me appreciate what I had at home and how blessed we are to have everything that we do have and the ability to go out and help people. So this is kind of where I'm going with this is I urge operators to come out and volunteer and sign up as a member of Operators Without Border. It might not seem like much, but just doing these couple of things that we've done, you go out and you change people's lives. It's really substantial. And I'm just a regular father of two and enjoy working on cars, but being able to go away for a week or 2 weeks and help these people is very, very fulfilling. And I think a lot of you would feel the same way. And it's very simple, just the knowledge that you have in your head. We're not asking for you to go out and redo tests or anything else. It's just, it's a great opportunity. I think you should definitely get on board.
A little bit about if you can see the photograph that's up on the screen, it's you with, when you put together that reverse osmosis system in the container.
That's
and
right.
If you think he looks a little tired and wet, he came out and had to change his T-shirt 3 times.
That's great. Yeah, it was actually at a little school. The schools didn't have water for the kids. The kids were still going to school, but they didn't have fresh water. So we took a C-can container and put in 4 RO units that we were able to then take the water that was coming out, the salty water out of the wells, and we were filling day tanks, and the kids then could come outside and fill their waters, and we supplied the whole community around us, as well as the 2 schools in the area, for these kids to be able to come out and have fresh water every morning, which it was substantial. And that only took a day and a half, and we worked with another mission on this one. They supplied all the equipment. We just went in and helped them put it together and make it work for them, so to speak.
Yeah, we were working with Water Mission, and what happened is I found out that Water Mission wanted to take this and build this container with this reverse osmosis plant. And they had 2 volunteers that were going to go and do this, a husband and wife team from a church.
That's right.
Now, I said, I think we can help. And as Jason said, we went in and in a day and a half, they just did a tremendous job, and it worked absolutely fantastically. What would have happened with the husband and wife team? Very well-meaning people, but no experience doing this type of thing. So we're now working very, very closely with these other charities, these NGOs that are on the ground there. And we have now been very much involved with the NGO community and the WASH, the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene community. And we're part of that and becoming quite well known in those areas. So Jason, maybe you can talk about a couple of these other photographs. They're not necessarily you, but just maybe what the guys are doing here.
Yeah, definitely. So in Bahamas, the way that the water had come up and actually washed out all of their plants in the wells. So it took all of their walkways and everything and kind of stuffed them up into the ceiling. So we went in and just did a real brief safety overhaul of the place, made it easier for the operators to come in so they weren't traversing holes and open wells, cleaned up some of the stuff around the electrical panels, got them closed up some of the they had chlorine cylinders that they were using, bolted them to the walls, just very, very simple things, but they didn't have the time to do it. So being that we could go there for a day or 2 days, we able to sweep up and clean up and go to these different places and just make it a little more safe for the operators when they're going into work. Then there's other, a couple pictures here of us testing wells. So there was a number of wells, as I indicated, in Bahamas, over 160 of them. Some of them, the panels got washed off of the poles and the poles were down. Other ones, the check valves weren't working. So we just go in and see what wasn't working, get an inventory, and go back to their stores and be able to replace parts or have their electricians would come out and do any of the electrical for us. But we just identified the issues. And then we were on a day-to-day basis, we were going around and testing each one of the wells just to see what the levels were. And if we needed to actually bring another well on, we would, or turn one off if it had higher salinity. We just simply turn it off and leave it off for a week or whatever it took to recharge and get lower levels. So yeah, just basically assisting the authority within the area. So if we had issues, they were always available. We could call them, and they provided us with a car to get around, and tools and electricians and anything else that we needed. We were just kind of overseeing, giving our insight. Yes.
Remember this little boy that you befriended?
Yeah. So we actually went and checked out one of the RO systems that they had set up for a little community outside of the main city. And we were just checking out, and this little boy and his sister came down the road, and they had gone out to help their grandmother clean out the house because the house had been under 10 feet of water. So they were there helping out, and I gave them a pair of gloves and just a simple pair of work gloves that I had. We had multiples because we took them down with us. He was over the moon because he could go back and help his grandmother pull stuff out of their house because they've been working so hard. That's one simple thing that on the 2 trips that I've brought in was work gloves, packages of work gloves. And the people are so thankful because they've been working their hands till they're bleeding, but don't have any work gloves. So he was a great little guy. Him and his sisters came up and they sang a little song for us, and then they went back to working for their grandmother.
But I remember that he came to the car and he saw all of the other PPE and wanted to take all of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted my vest and my hard hat. He really wanted to get into it. He was excited to do some work.
Because in this area that Jason's talking about, there was not one home that had not been destroyed. Most of them were just rubble, or there was houses that were 100, 150 feet from their foundations. It was just amazing destruction. It's sort of like the wildfires that Greg, et cetera, have dealt with here, where there's just nothing left. But what amazed me is, and Jason, you can speak to this as well, the resilience of the people there. I was in one area, we were waiting to take a ferry over to this little community where there was literally nothing left. And this lady was sitting there eating some food that was provided by Mercy Kitchen. And I talked to her and I said, do you live in this community? And she said, yes. She said, my house was over there. And I said, well, how are you doing? She said, I was very, very blessed. She said, I am so blessed. She said, I have a new house and my walls are still standing. There was no roof, there was no windows, but she still had her walls. And she was blessed because she had her walls. And she pointed to another house that was just a load of rubble and said, that's my parents' house. So their house was completely destroyed. And I said, but did you evacuate? And she said, yes, I managed to get to Freeport, which was, the main town luckily was not hit. And she said, my parents and my 2 children came with me. She said, but my brother had just started a new business. So he couldn't afford the hotel, so he stayed with his 2 children. They all perished. And I will tell you, the impact that her statement had on me, that she was telling me that she was blessed when she's lost her brother, her nephew and niece, and his wife, and her parents' home is in rubbles. And we go down there for 2 weeks and we feel good about it. I think, Jason, you can attest that it makes you feel so good to be going to help. But it also is very, very humbling. Jason, have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I had a number of experiences very same way, very humbled. The people were so resilient. There was a time when we were crossing from one island to another on a boat, and there was a family, and they were sitting beside their house that was rubble. And they were happy to come to the edge of the water and wave us in and smiling, and they were just happy to be alive. And they had nothing. Their house had washed into the ocean, but they were happy to wave at us and come us over and provide us with little things that they didn't have and tell us about their experiences. And I truly am, from both of these missions, humbled, and I want to do it more, just because we're so lucky what we have, and we take everything day to day for granted. But these people were so resilient. Always, as I said, the little boy and his sisters, they came over. They were happy. Her mother was happy. They were just happy the sun was shining and they weren't dealing with the hurricane anymore. So the little things that we do mean so very much for these people.
So thank you, Jason, and thank you for all that you have done. So we've had to move on because of COVID, so we're doing everything remotely. As Jason said, we look for more volunteers. We're doing a lot of training, so if any of you have training experience and are willing to help with training, we're doing a massive amount of training in the Caribbean right now. So here's our website, and you can always get hold of us through the EOCP as well if you want to volunteer. We'd love you to become a member, because then you're going to be in the loop. We'll send you all our information. So membership is $50, and that's for 3 years, so about $17 a year. Don't tell me you can't afford it. You can. So it's very easy. I know when all these mailers come through and they ask you to join this and donate to this. This is our charity, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Please become a member. Please come and help us. We don't get any government funding. I have to raise every single penny to send Jason and the other teams. So we would be blessed if you would help us. So thank you, Kalpana, for this opportunity, and God bless you all.